Welcome to the StreetSmart Wisdom podcast from WisdomFeed. I'm Steve Stein. In this series, we talk to best-selling authors and thought leaders doing great work in the world of mindfulness, wellness, and creativity. Our mission is to bring ancient ideas down to street level and bring you takeaways that you can apply to everyday life. Enjoy. This podcast is sponsored by BetterListen.com. At BetterListen, we have hundreds of audios, courses, and programs available to stream and download. As a listener to the Street Smart Wisdom podcast, you are eligible for a free audiobook download. Just visit BetterListen.com/free today. Welcome to this episode of the Street Smart Wisdom podcast. Our guest today is Keith Mitchell. He's a former NFL All-Pro player, mindfulness coach, author, and yoga master. In this session, we find out about Keith's incredible journey from a career-ending injury and how he turned that into a new career and becoming a thought leader in the world of wellness. Enjoy. Hi, welcome. This is Steve Stein, host of the Street Smart Wisdom podcast. Our guest today is Keith Mitchell. Welcome, Keith. Keith, if you don't know, he is a former All-Pro NFL player, became an internationally renowned yoga instructor, and is the author of the upcoming book, The Mindfulness Playbook. Welcome, Keith.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Pleasure to be here.
No, it's cool. It's great stuff. So let's jump into it. So, I guess gave kind of like who you are in broad strokes, but how would you tell people I'm not familiar with you and your work, who you are?
Well, I'm someone from a small town outside of Dallas, Texas. I had, as a kid, I used this concept we talk about in the conscious world as manifesting. And I had this dream, I had a teacher who asked me the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I was probably 13 at the time. And I put this goal out that I wanted every school to recruit me to play football for them. And at that time, my mother wasn't even letting me play football. So how was I going to do that? But as we know with manifesting, not only do we speak the words, we begin to also plant the seeds. And I began to apply myself and learn the game and actually play the game and go through my journey of learning the game. And I achieved just that, from a small town outside of Dallas to have every school in the country to recruit me to play sport because I felt I could be great. I felt that I could attain on the highest level my greatest desire. So it began to be my life. It began to, as I went from college, I chose Texas A&M. I went to the team the Jersey I actually have right here, the New Orleans Saints. Played with them for 6 years. I went to the Houston Texans, and then I went to Jacksonville. And then Jacksonville is where I really started my journey, making a tackle I had made a million times. On this one particular play, ended up on my back. I was diagnosed with a spinal contusion. I basically broke my neck, and I had suffered paralysis. So all the attainment that you were, feel that you were to have at that moment was all kind of up in the air. The cars, the homes. I was in my own quarantine before the quarantine. And I learned this one particular practice that forever changed my life. And what happens when you breathe. The nurse talked to me about conscious breathing. And in that discovery, it just made breathing a tool. It conceptualized breathing for me. And in that allowed me to develop, as I like to say, as more of a human being with the capacity to do the things of sports, capacity to grow into the things that I've done for his care plans and working with groups all over the world. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be where I am. And so hopefully you get an understanding through that.
Wow. So what went when you got that diagnosis, normally, I mean, it's a big question mark. I mean, it's got to be, I can't imagine how scary it was and pain and all that stuff. But what was the prognosis initially? Now you're an elite, you're a yoga person and instructor. Um, do like the doctors, did they expect you to walk again or not walk again? Or was it in that realm? Or, obviously, thank goodness you've healed and you got past it. But at that point, that snapshot in time, how bleak was it?
Well, it brought me to a realization that a lot of times the doctors, they don't know everything. And I had been conditioned to perceive that they do. And in this case, they were looking at me like, we don't know if you're going to be able to walk. We don't know how long this is going to last. There was no answer. And it was a huge letdown when there was no answer. Because again, the conditioning suggested that they would have it. But again, luckily for me, I learned what the power of breath. And one thing that really changed my mental, when I realized that I could contribute through my breath for my healing, when I realized that I can contribute through my healing, I didn't have to be the victim anymore.
Wow. You can kind of take control of your breath and take control of your life to a certain extent.
Exactly.
Because you go through the day, like I'm sitting here talking with you and I'm talking with you, but I'm breathing. My heart's always working, thank God. My breath is, I'm always breathing, but to do it consciously kind of brings you're not just you're not just a victim or at effect, you could be a cause for what you want to do.
Yes, because the breath is healing. The breath is minerals in a vapor form, I like to call it. And when you think about the anatomy and you think about the heart and the lungs, a lot of people take the shallow breath. Well, the heart and the lungs, they move naturally. So they don't need your assistance. But what begins to be stagnant is the liver, the kidneys, the intestines. They begin to be stagnant. So when we breathe, and the stronger the breath, the deeper the diaphragm pushes down. Now you begin to massage the internal organs over 10,000 times a day we take on average. Now you're talking about circulation. You're talking about moving the blood flow through the body, and that's healing.
Wow. Boy, God bless that nurse, right? That nurse in the hospital,
Yes. Yes.
She wasn't on shift that day or that week or, but
We'd be
that's
in
very,
trouble. We'd be in trouble.
all right. But that's why, I love it. I love it. Okay. So what do you do now? So, what do you do? I know you're an elite athlete now. So now you have a book coming out. What's it called? The Mindfulness Playbook?
Yes. 8 strategies at winning at the game of life. And,
Wow. So,
yeah.
So you're an author, and what's the book about?
So it's a codified way of living. It's basically learning how to set intentions. It's learning to use tools, tangibles, leverage points, I like to call it, to run the plays that you wish to run in your life. If it's patience, if it's compassion, if it's love, if it's all of the above, it's a codified way of actually strategically going to the game, which the game I'm suggesting is life, and allowing that to happen for you. And it's also showcasing how you are your own guru, how you are your own coach in this sense as well. It's not going to have you dependent on anyone but you and your commitment to what you want to do.
Right. And it seems like that ties in. Conscious breathing lets you kind of get in touch with your own innate wisdom.
Yes.
Because without that, you're just going through the day and, you wake up one day and you're however old you are and you miss your life. So,
yes.
So, wow, it's just the shock that your body went into was like turning you into a whole other, I think it's great turning you in a whole other direction, but you could have just gone on and lived your life, but it seems like you're dedicated to sharing that, what you learned.
Well, the interesting thing enough with the breath, when you talk about conscious breathing, what you'll find is because a lot of the dis-ease that happens in our bodies, it comes from the emotional body. So what we'll find with the breath, as we begin to elongate the breath, we actually begin to build a stronger emotional maturity. We begin to grow on an emotional basis, right? So now we begin to process things different. We're less reactive and we're more intentional. So even as we talk about we breathe naturally, but we get to hone the breath to actually be this tool, conceptualized tool for an application. So that's what I'm really interested in, whether it be your breath, whether it be your posture, because yoga is a formality. Yoga is a concept of relationship building with yourself, to know how your body functions, know how your body moves, and to do meditation to listen to your body. And also, Steve, and again, coming from Texas, I never would have guessed in a million years. If you would have told me I would be a vegan, I would be like, you're insane and you're not talking about me. But for 8 years, I've also been a vegan and an advocate for fueling consciousness through a vegan lifestyle.
Wow. So if we do a plant-based event, I'll definitely call you in to be part of that.
Awesome.
Cool. So why? Why are you doing this? I mean, we got to some of that, but why aren't you? You probably had enough money. You probably didn't need to get back to work. I mean, I don't know, but I'm just guessing. But you're hustling. You're getting your message out there. Why do you feel compelled to do that?
Well, what I found with mindfulness is like to realize the problem internally also reflects to the problems externally. The problems that we think are just happening within and between our minds and between our two ears is also happening across the planet. And as we begin to create protocols of solving our own personal problems, we can also solve the external problems because they also exist with us. We're not just inside this, as Alan Watts talks about, the bag of bones. We're not just there. We also exist in the external world. So that same participation that we take to heal ourselves with is the same participation that we must go out into the world and create solutions and solve our problems.
Wow. So what's your, for people like dealing with the pandemic? So, we talked a little bit before we started. Some people are in hotspots, and that's a little different reality than people not in hotspots. But almost everyone's hunkered down, losing their mind to, trying to, so any tips for, coping with the different layers of stress that are going on during this pandemic time?
Yes. And the first thing I would say to the people out there, don't serve the time. Allow the time to serve you. And a lot of times what we give focus to, we want to focus on the things that we feel are going to bring us the harm. But also what I'm really realizing is check in with what we're gaining and how people are having more connectivity. Realize how people are actually going and doing simple things again, right? Without the distractions. So you got the cars, you got the homes, you got the high heel shoes you can't go anywhere with. Now it's just you. So a lot of times the quarantine is just happening within your mind. And actually it's probably been happening in your whole existence already. Now it's just coming to surface. So now find these little intricate parts that we can go within with. And find, we talk about a lot of athletes, every interview you say, well, I have this idea of getting better as an athlete. But we can take every day because now we have this time, the time that we talked about that we never had. Now you got a plethora of time. So now you can do and add these little increment parts of you that you want to see get better. These intricate parts of you that you want to expand upon, heal, move into, learn, whether it be to communicate more, whether it be to eat a little bit better, cook more, things like that, you can actually have time to do. And I challenge you to really apply that. And in that application, what you'll find is you'll create new patterns that'll go way beyond this pandemic, that'll really be to your benefit, not only to yourself, but the people around you.
Amen. That is cool. That's a great little takeaway right there. No, that's great. So then I think I mentioned, how are we doing? I think we're okay on time. Let me So you're into Alan Watts, so bag of bones,
Bag of bones, yes.
what does that mean? Like, our physical self as compared to our metaphysical self, or what does that term mean?
Well, definitely. What that means to me is a lot of times we play small. We play the victim, and it's so easy to play because poor me. But the reality is, you're so much greater than you've ever given yourself truly the opportunity to be. Just like as I share with you my story of this kid outside of this big town of Dallas, and I can't even say the town I'm from because people don't know it. But to have this act, to put this claim in the world to say I can be great. Well, it's not necessarily that you even have to conceive yourself as being great, but it's like conceiving yourself and attaching and aligning yourself to the place of what do you desire? What do you want? And what's possible for you? And when you really reflect on that, you'll realize that there's so much there. It's just I've been sitting on my hands and not allowing myself to do it. It's like a lot of times we deny ourselves. And a person that really wants to be seen, I've gone around, I've had a chance to teach people from all over the planet. And it's like, and a lot of times when you say people can't meditate or have problems meditating, it's because that interpersonal relationship had never been developed. That interpersonal relationship is like been touching you or tapping you on the shoulder and saying, listen to me, look at me, I'm here. And what we've been doing is denying it and suppressing it and shutting it down. And it just wants to be seen. So I'm, again, suggesting to you, allow that inter person that's there, that speaks to you every now and again through sensations, through aches and pains. Listen to it. Let it out. We need it. We need your participation right now because we can't do it solo. We have to do it as a collective. So we need you now.
Wow. Sign me up. So I'm just seeing that's cool, man. That's cool. So what is the Light It Up Foundation? Is that something that what's the story with that?
So the Light Up Foundation was started to really kind of in LA when I moved to LA to create a platform where a lot of people that were doing some really amazing things could all come together and like whether it be on my platform, be seen, and actually also be and create a collective because what you find is we don't typically have conscious think tanks. So when we talk about strategizing as a collective, it's like non and void because we don't have the relationship established with one another. It's kind of like our mantra for the Light Up Foundation is to go fast, go alone, to go far, we go together. And we have to see this universal man, this universal woman as the ultimate team sport. And we must come together and do it together. And we need allies to do it. So through the Light Up Foundation, I started to create programs. I started to create retreats, like the retreat we did in LA, was at the LA Coliseum. We would have 12,000 people come. I would get the police chief,
12,000 people? What'd you do with 12,000 people?
Well, we would teach them nutrition. We would teach them gardening. We would have a sound bath healing. I would get the city council to help me bring in 6,000 kids. We would introduce yoga, meditation. We'd have entertainment. It's basically a socialized way that we can have an integration of people from all walks of life and realize the experience.
Wow. So I grew up in Brooklyn, in the city. We weren't wealthy particularly. So you're saying you brought inner city kids that wouldn't know like a yoga cushion if it hit them in the head, and all of a sudden they're right out of the hood or wherever, and now they're breathing consciously?
Yes, with a gong, with the sound bath healing too. It was amazing. I would have mothers who never had a massage have a massage for free. And I would have some of the brilliant teachers that we have in LA to have conversations with these kids. And not only the small kids, but the adult kids. So we would all get a taste of what it is to be the experience of consciousness or mindfulness or meditation. And it was just a beautiful experience there. And that's what the Light Up Foundation was about. And it was just to create those experiences so we can have and realize what's possible.
Wow. What one person could do. I love it. Real quick. So my grandmother, going way back, she they came from Europe, and I think 4 or 5 of her brothers, the Nazis got, they were killed, but her and 5 sisters made it out. And when she was 85 or 86, and I was a vegetarian for a few years. I'm not now, but I'm very, my kids call me like the organic dude. It's enough already. Give me a real, give me a real crap. I said too many syllables, in those cookies. Anyway, but so I remember with my grandmother, she lived to 92 and 93. And I said, her name was Grandma Fanny. I said, Grandma Fanny, let me give you a massage. And I said, when's the last time you had a massage? She said, I never had a massage. She was, she was just taking care of the kids and running from the Nazis, or, she didn't have that luxury to take care of herself. Didn't even know it was in the realm of, so I gave her a massage and she was, it was fine. But I think you can go your whole life not even knowing there's other things out there.
So true. And that would be another conversation we could have, because we could go all day on that,
Right.
Because there's a lot of, it's a lot of people on the planet that have had limited experiences, and they've defined their lives based off those limited experiences. So again, possibility is not even an option for them, because they've minimized their lives just through the experience. But we're here to share ways in which we can provoke thought to expand their ideas and open them up to have new experiences. And that's the practice of mindfulness.
Wow. Bingo. I love it. Okay. So here's my I think we got to it, but I'm going to, what's that term again? Give me one sec. Here we go. So if you were a superhero, what would your creation story be? What was the thing that happened? Like, the Incredible Hulk, he picked up, some uranium or whatever it was, and then gave him superpowers. Was there something, that happened when you were young or at some point that kind of set you on this path? We kind of hit on it, but, what's your creation story if you were a superhero?
So what I would say is, I would be this kid that grew up in Garland, Texas, that wanted to play football and will be the greatest football player on the planet to one day pretty much break his neck, end up flat on his back. And when he thought that was his original superpower, realized another superpower once he left the game of football and realized his potential to be a human being. How about that?
Wow. I like it. That is great. All right. You 2 superpowers for the price of 1. Man. That was great. Excellent. All right. So how can people find you? What's your website and that good stuff, or on social? What's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, my Instagram is Keith Mitchell 59. My website is keithmitchell59.com. I have meditations. The book is coming. I have a supplement line called a Meta, and I can't wait for you to see that. And I'm looking forward to send me messages. I respond to your questions. Anything you have, please share with me. Follow me on the various social media channels, and I look forward to meeting you.
That sounds great. Well, Keith Mitchell, thank you so much for a great discussion. And what do they say? Namaste or thanks or?
Namaste. Yeah.
Namaste. I like it.
Yeah.
You've been listening to StreetSmart Wisdom, the podcast from WisdomFeed. You can follow WisdomFeed on Facebook, Twitter, and iTunes. If you haven't, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on iTunes. We appreciate your feedback. Join us next week for another Street Smart conversation. Thank you for listening.